Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Carve Your Own Fucking Path, a podcast made to inspire you to create a life and business on your own terms. You'll hear candid interviews with people who have boldly decided to blaze their own trail, and the occasional solo show with me, your host. I'm Willa McDonough, on-camera coach, storyteller, and remote video producer. 5 years ago, I moved from my home base of San Francisco to the coast of Portugal, taking a big leap into the unknown. Some called it courageous. I called it carving my own fucking path. Today, I live in Lisbon and run a business that elevates your online presence, helping you show up confidently on camera to create videos that showcase your brand and personality so you can get more visibility and attract clients by being yourself. If you're just starting out in business or you've been doing it for a while, you're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice and hopefully feel inspired by stories from people who have chosen the unconventional and sometimes messy path. And if you've been waiting for a sign to start carving your own fucking path, this is it. I'm so happy you're here. Do you envision yourself giving a TED Talk, sharing your message, and changing the world? Well, if that is your thing, and you've been wanting to do that, I have the perfect guest for you. His name is Asger Lindholdt. He's based in Denmark, and this guy followed a very academic path, getting a Ph.D. in ship coding, which he will explain, and followed that path until he realized this was not his passion. And he wanted to really follow and find something that would make a real difference in people's lives. So nowadays, Asger is a professional public speaker and trainer. He's proud to say that he's helped dozens of individuals, organizations, high-profile speakers, entrepreneurs, academics, and TEDx speakers. He is the go-to person if you want to master the art of sharing your message from the stage. Without further ado, let's meet the man of the hour, Asger Lindholdt. Thank you for being on the show. I have so many questions, like always, but especially for you, because we don't actually know each other. We've recently met online on LinkedIn. And as I was saying that, I'm like, met online, that could mean something else too. You have your own show on LinkedIn. You are a professional speaker, trainer. You train TEDx speakers, entrepreneurs, professionals in all fields. And you also have a lot of letters after your name. So you're an academic as well.
Yeah, true.
I'm like, this person is so interesting. And so this show is really all about, your story, your path, and how you, kind of came to where you are today, and also being seen. So as an entrepreneur, especially as a public speaker, a professional public speaker, you are really putting yourself out there and being seen. So I would love to dive into that experience as well with you.
Yeah.
So
I'm here to dive in. And anyway, thank you a lot for taking the time to do all the work. And I'm happy you want to interview me.
Yeah, of course.
So good to be here.
Awesome. And you're based in Copenhagen, right?
Copenhagen, yeah. Right now, I'm just at home here in my apartment. I got my 3 kids sent off to one to school and the other one's to kindergarten, and my wife's off to work. So, pretty nice.
Yes. So you're home, and this is like your vortex, your studio.
This is where I'll often have clients as well. So
okay.
I got to do the cleaning a little bit. I do both virtual.
Okay.
Obviously because of COVID, which pushed, I think, all of us to expand our comfort zone and do new things. Right. I never thought, that virtual could be as good, but I do see a lot of benefits from it. Mm-hmm. It's such a great way because obviously it is a little bit harder to connect deeply with people, but I do actually find it is very possible. Mm-hmm. And it's very fast. You can just dive into the camera very quickly. And there's a lot of benefits. I always record my sessions with my clients if it's online, and then I give it to them. They have it forever. They can use it. And it's just a great way to work. And I can also do that with people who I work with physically, just send them a video. But I think just being virtual, you're more prone to really do and use that medium you have available. So I think everybody that's afraid to go virtual, go do it. I'm going to do work with people all around the world now. So I think it's been great to be pushed out to do that. Yeah.
So your network, or the people that you were mainly working with, are based in Denmark?
No, not really. All over.
Okay.
Obviously, I'll probably say about 50% of the people I work with are based in Copenhagen. The other 50% are people virtually.
Right.
Israel, Scotland, US, South Africa. So, yeah.
Yeah. So COVID, is that really pushed you to go?
It pushed me to go virtual because I thought, how can I deliver as much value virtual? And I think, I was a little bit reluctant to it. And then there's also the first part was like, oh, COVID, what's that? Everything stopped. I actually had a few clients on the hook, and they all kind of, went away because, I don't think we can do it virtual. And I wasn't even ready for it. So it took me a couple of months to say, hey, this thing is sticking around, and I thought now is the opportunity actually to grow. And with mediums like LinkedIn, YouTube, we can reach people all across the world. So, we should do that. We should take that opportunity and do it. So yeah, COVID pushed me, and I think everybody else in this industry. And it's going to keep being like this. And right now, it's pretty funny because I often go to conferences as well. Sometimes I will actually prefer a virtual conference because it's much faster just to dive into the computer. Sure, it's not as energetic as being right there, but I do save a lot of time. And if it is not great value, it's a lot easier just to press the cross and you're out, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely do prefer being there. But in terms of saving time, it's going to be worth it.
Yes. And it seems like such a mix these days.
Yeah.
You
have the kids, so if I got to put them to sleep in the evening, it's pretty nice. You can just log on to a webinar once they're sleeping. And that's pretty nice.
Right. So it sounds like life was much different before COVID happened, that you were traveling quite a bit, speaking on stages yourself.
Oh, no, I didn't travel back then. I would mainly just have my clients here in Copenhagen.
Okay.
Back then, but throughout the last year, it's expanded to have more clients abroad. So no, I wouldn't be doing a lot of traveling before that. That's very small kids.
Right.
Make a little bit of a problem. I would just stay within Denmark mainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you made your mark in Denmark.
Yeah.
It was cheesy. Okay. I can't help myself. So
you shouldn't.
So take us back to let's go to your academic life, or even farther back than that. So, because it is quite different. And so you have a master's in chemical engineering, and then you had a PhD in boat coding.
I was working with ship coding.
Which is very specific.
You got to people that are in the industry, you want to paint your boat because otherwise it gets full of algae and slime and mussels, and that can obviously make you sail a lot slower. So that's a huge industry. We don't see it below the water. So yeah. Okay.
And then you were in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, I worked there for years. Looking into a screen.
Yep. Computer all day. And
pretty much, yeah.
And I like, again, I'll let you speak, but I like what you said about you wanted to follow this different path. You had this dream of doing something that made a difference. And then, but it took you a while to get there.
Yeah.
So walk us through that process.
Yeah. I think, most of the issues, challenges we have in life often come from our childhood.
Oh yeah.
So it took me probably a good 30 years to kind of realize that many of the challenges and issues I had came from my upbringing. I grew up in an academic family. My mom was a dentist, my dad a biologist. So they kind of were quite interested in science, and my brother was very enthusiastic about physics and math. So yeah, I was kind of pushed a little bit that way. And my dad, he didn't give me a whole lot of attention, a little bit of a wooden man. So I think on a subconscious level, I was trying to, get that appraisal, get that love, and get that recognition. And he cared a lot about school. He cared a lot about getting good grades. So that was one way to get some sort of recognition. And obviously the scientific classes would be the best in his point of view. So I think that was a large degree why I pursued that path. But being a student was okay. I kind of liked being with my friends at uni and, doing the work. I wasn't super excited about it, but it was okay. I kind of liked it. But I remember my first day in the oil and gas industry. I'd been there probably, 20 minutes. I got set up, I got a great mentor, and I was about to work on a project. And I thought, this seems incredibly boring.
Oh, no.
And I was only 20 minutes into it, having studied 5 years. And then I was pretty good at listening to other people's advice. So, my friends say, you got to stick a little bit around, because it's going to get more interesting later. So I stuck around 6 months. Then the financial crisis came and people were just happy if you had a job. So I thought, okay, let me stick with this. So I stuck with it for 4 years. I didn't really enjoy it. Nice people, good company, good pay. So all of those things make it harder to leave as well. And I didn't really know what I wanted in my life either. So like, why should I quit to do something which I don't know what is? So I never really asked myself the question. I never really found the tools to discover it. And then you also, if you do find something you love, you're going to have the confidence. I like playing football, but yeah, I could see, that is not going to be realistic. So yeah, then I ended up doing a PhD. I had some of my friends at uni that they had loved doing a PhD. And I thought, well, I kind of liked being at university. I didn't love it. So I pursued a PhD. And that was probably the worst thing because I really like being with people. I'm quite extroverted. And at that environment in a technical university, people are typically very introverted. And the work you do is also, you're very much alone. Sure, you have a supervisor who can help you, but they only have a limited amount of time. And it's not really, you don't have really that banter. You don't really have that kind of friendship. It's a very professional relationship, at least the one I had. So I thought it was pretty tough for me. I ended up finishing it and doing okay with it, but I didn't really enjoy it. And so yeah. And then I discovered along the way, as part of being a PhD student, you have to teach other bachelor students or master students. I really enjoyed that. That was part of what I really enjoyed.
Okay.
I thought, okay, what can I do in order to work with people, teach? And then I became a high school teacher, and that was pretty fun. I like that. But, there are also certain limitations to being a high school teacher in terms of pay, in terms of time, in terms of working with who you want to work with. So being an independent, I think, has so many more benefits, creating your own schedule, creating your own wealth, and being able to work with the people you really want to work with. Yeah. I love my students. They're very nice, but it is also different if somebody walks in my door and they're highly passionate from day one and they just really want to go at it. So yeah, I think this suits me even better. So yeah, that's kind of my story. And then there's obviously the journey of how to grow your own business, all the limitations,
all the things,
and yeah, all that thing. But yeah, I'm at a good point now. I think, I can grow my business. I can scale it. I can learn it. But it takes a while to get over that initial, you can say, step where you start believing in yourself and actually having clients that are happy. And I didn't have the degree. I didn't study rhetoric. I didn't study public speaking. I just happened to like it. So there's a little bit of an imposter syndrome as well. You're going to get over and think about, I can do this too. It's a learnable skill. And it's actually funny when you see the people who make it pretty big within this industry as a speaker. Often they've never studied rhetoric. They have taught themselves. I'm not saying there's anything wrong studying rhetoric. If I could have done that, I probably would have done it. But it shouldn't be a limitation to grow yourself. And I think most skills, or pretty much any skill, is learnable. And if we have the passion and the confidence, we can learn this. So we have YouTube, we have the internet, there are people available we can hire for help. So it's all about just finding that path yourself and diving into it. So it's never too late to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when did you realize that it was the speaking part? So I'm picturing you like in front of the classroom, a small classroom of people, and you're, realizing, this is actually what I like.
Yeah, I think for me, it was probably when I joined a club called Toastmasters. One time I joined a seminar because I'm an engineer, And I thought, yeah, it's pretty nice, to learn the skill of presenting. It's not the most important thing as an engineer, but it's pretty good to learn. And I signed up at a seminar at the Engineering Association, and I really liked that. I thought that was fun. I just had 15 minutes up, and I talked about even my ship coding that I wasn't even highly passionate about. But yeah, that was pretty fun. And then I thought, what can I do to learn more about this? And then found Toastmasters. So I joined Toastmasters for a couple of years. And for the people that don't know it, it's like a nonprofit organization all over the world. So if you live in any just fairly big city, I'm sure there's going to be a place for you. And you can come and practice and do speeches, typically 5 to 10 minutes, and get feedback from the other members. So I learned a ton there. But obviously, there are also a lot of limitations to Toastmasters. It's regular folks that go there that have an interest within it. It's not professional speaking. So you need to go, at least in my opinion, outside of Toastmasters to get really good. It's a great place to get started, see if you like it. And that's what I did. So that's really where my passion sparked for public speaking. I did have a lot of interest. I also like, accelerated learning, how we can get really good at things. So in the beginning, I made a mistake. Probably a lot of entrepreneurs make it, went out and spoke about too many things, offered too many services.
Got it.
A classic mistake, right? Yeah. So now I've just said, okay, this is the one thing I do. And when I'm incredibly big, I will offer other services. But that you need to be at a certain level before people come and ask you for your not main service. So yeah, and it's actually fun because that also keeps me in one lane. Right. This is the thing I do. These are the books I read. These are the people I follow. So I think it's a lot of advantages, not just for the client, but also for oneself. Stick in one lane. In other words, niche down. Yeah, niche down, really. Niche down. And even within public speaking, that is such a big area. You could even niche down a lot more. So I'm trying to hit solo entrepreneurs, like passionate solo entrepreneurs that, TEDx kind of people that have a message they want to share. Maybe they could be, I don't know, about dog training or the new meditation practice, whatever. Those people that work and they can see that could be a great part of the business to go out and speak besides the training. So that's one area I try to hit. And then more the academic field, because it ties back to my own background. So I kind of know that group well. Maybe it's too much to have 2 groups, but anyway, it's better than having 20. Yeah. And you make the rules? Yeah, definitely. So often it's the companies that ask me to go do workshops. That's more the academic part, whereas the one-to-one training is typically more solo entrepreneurs. And I like to do both. Yeah. Well, they're quite different. And I'm just assuming that the academics, you can really speak that language with them. And they, of course, look at your accomplishments and, okay, you're in. What do you really like to talk about? If you're giving a speech, what do you love to speak about? So what I talk about is public speaking. So those could be different areas. I always want to ask the client, what's your biggest struggle? So one of the big things I think people miss when we are doing our audience analysis, we look at all the facts, age, gender, education, all those facts, which are nice to know, because if you know their educational level, you can probably, what are the words you can use and how much abstraction can they handle and so on. But we need to look at the emotional side as well. Are they stressed when you come there? Are they afraid? Are they full of confidence? There's a kickoff meeting where everybody's super excited, so you really need to look into that. So that helps me look at what I should talk about, but otherwise it could be fear of public speaking. It's a big thing for people. It could be storytelling. How do you use it in a business context? It could be how to structure your talk. Those sort of things, everything pretty much related within a talk. But for me, the most important thing is really look at what do they need the most, and then also try to be, what don't they know they need? I was going to say, often when I work with academics, I need to help them see, you need to make it fun. You need to make it engaging. It's not enough that it's great facts, that it's great information. They will drift away. Yep. They will. And I don't care if you are the best in the industry. You need to have some sort of fun and engagement on stage. And yeah. And so you help people, again, with the storytelling piece, which we're definitely going to talk a lot about that, because so how difficult is it to get people to get out of that fact-driven, data and like really tap into
their own stories?
It depends a lot on the person you work with. Everybody's at a different level. Sure, there can be professors who said, I've done this for 20 years. And then you have to convince them that they might have a problem, even though they don't think so. And how do you do that in a nice way? Tell them that your students are coming because they have an exam.
Yeah.
They might not come because you're the most interesting to listen to. Maybe you are, but I remember when I had math classes, because there was one auditorium packed with people, and there was one with very few, because everybody has to have math. So they had two auditoriums, and there was a reason why. So I think it's a lot about seeing, when you help them, seeing their greatness, saying there's nothing wrong with you. You just didn't have the proper training. Maybe you didn't know this. Maybe you've been told this your whole life, that you got to start off with sharing your CV. Who cares? Give them some value, and I will care later who you are. So those sort of things, try to help them, lift them up, and say it's not really a mistake. That kind of bridges the gap. And obviously sharing some failure stories yourself. Saying, I used to do this. So, and then they're like, oh, he did it. Okay, he's not trying to better himself. So obviously you have to prove you're an expert, but sharing a few failure stories kind of helps people ease up and open up.
Definitely.
So I would say it's very different how difficult it is.
Right.
But the main challenge is not to teach them. It's to have them realize you have a problem. Once you realize you have a problem, it's so much easier to teach them the things they need. Like if you have a problem, you're going to go look for that information. You're going to find the book. You're going to find the videos, the courses. But if you don't know you have a problem, you're not going to go look for it. So that is a big, big part of training people, make them realize they have a challenge.
You got problems.
Yeah.
You're going to help solve it too. And
true.
It sounds
That'll
like
be a little bit unfair. If you got a problem, I'm going to help you.
Point it out. See you later. It sounds like you give people permission, actually.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Giving them permission to talk about themselves and share these stories and these struggles, and also showing that their stories are of value. Do you hear that a lot? Like, no one cares about that. It's not I mean, you always think my story's not interesting. But it really is. All the stories we have are interesting, and most of the things we experience are the same things, just different stories. Right.
So we can relate to it. I think it was so good what you just said. Give people permission. That's a really great phrase.
LinkedIn headline.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a great phrase. Give people permission, because I've struggled so much with this. Trying to live up to being someone I wasn't. And I thought for so many years, I should get appraisal because I'm good, because you got to be the best. You can get appraisal when you're good. You should deliver great material. Sure, you can get appraisal for that, but you should just have value by being you.
Exactly.
And kudos to you. If you're trying your best, you put in the work. I think that's what we should be celebrating way more than the actual results. And that I've struggled with. So I think, good point you have there.
Yeah. Well, glad I could point that out. It sounded exactly.
Keep that.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to the childhood part, trying to get this recognition. And did you feel that mainly from your father, or in other ways, like culturally, did you feel that as well?
No, I think it's probably mainly from my dad. Yeah, trying to live up to that and get that kind of recognition.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably part of society, like I just talked about, we recognize the people who do well, a little bit less the effort. I think we should reward the effort more. And I try to do that with my kids. Often I also fall into the trap, what a nice drawing. Of course, instead of saying, I can really see you put in work. Oh, you're trying a new color. How exciting. Trying to, tell them that they're doing good because they're trying.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than beautiful drawing. What can you use that for in the end of the day? Sure, it's nice, but
it's the acknowledgement.
Yeah, I think so. The thing that's behind that.
So you're breaking the chain, it sounds like, of this pattern.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Definitely. Which is huge. Again, you're very self-aware, clearly. And you've done a lot of personal development and personal growth to get you where you are. So what was that journey like, going from this academic world into this more personal growth?
Yeah. So I think it probably started already when I was, in the oil and gas industry. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I took a course within a psychological genre called NLP, stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. So anybody interested, it's so many great tools. And that kind of made me realize so many things, how we're affected by our feelings, our thoughts, what we see, our surroundings. So that kind of sparked a whole new journey into growth. And mm-hmm. I'm sure you're aware of this as well. When one door opens and you kind of get into a new world, many new doors will open and you quickly get interested. So yeah, that has helped me a lot. It's an interesting journey, I think, because probably the first 30 years I spent it on learning a skill set, mm-hmm. math, chemistry, all those sort of things, practical. Whereas from the 30s, it was more of learning an inwards journey. And I think that's actually the most interesting journey.
Always.
Yeah.
I'm an NLP practitioner as well. And it changed my life completely. I'm like, how did I not really know about the subconscious mind and how much it drives everything in our life and being able to communicate effectively and all that. Do you use NLP in your work then with clients?
Yeah, I do. I'm not doing sessions with them. Mm-hmm. If I do have clients that sometimes have huge challenges, I will refer them to a person because I don't also want to be their psychologist. Right. But yeah, I do use the tools to help them. Also, for instance, we have the eye-accessing cues, how you will look in one place to gather a picture, you move mm-hmm. your eyes in certain ways. So I help my clients when they're telling the stories. I said, you have to make the pictures before mm-hmm. you go in and tell your story, because you shouldn't be doing the work on stage. So once you know the pictures, once you've heard the sounds, you can so much more easily collect them on stage. Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to remember because our brain is wired for feelings and pictures. Mm-hmm. Those are the things I'm saying. That's what you got to share. I'm trying to merge it into the speaking training, mm-hmm. not always as a direct tool, but sometimes as an indirect tool like this one.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And I always ask about identity because it's interesting. And could you speak about that? Like how that's shifted for you or kind of what that means for you nowadays?
What do you mean exactly by identity?
Well, you were in academia, you have that kind of identity and I'm just guessing, but if you could talk about that process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. A lot of people put a lot of identity into our work, mm-hmm. what we do. I think that's always a big part of us. So I also put a big part of my identity into being a dad, having a family. Right. So, that's obviously shifted. But yeah, I think my identity is more like trying to help people rather than, prove I'm good. Mm-hmm. In the academic world, it's a lot about, you made great results. It's very competitive in a not so nice way, where it's more like if one succeeds, the other one doesn't, because it's all about funding. And there's only a limited amount of funding. Was a speaker trainer, everybody can come and get. And it's a business that can grow for everybody. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a good question. I feel just more relaxed about doing this because it's truly what I enjoy. Mm-hmm. So that has given me, that has helped my identity, doing something I love. Right. Following that passion you really like. I think that's so important. And having that identity and saying you should only be doing work you really like, at least the majority of the time, mm-hmm. to be enjoyable. I'm trying to stick with an 80-20, doing your accounting is not the most interesting, trying to outsource these kind of things, but especially when you're a small business, you also try to keep your costs low. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that should be, I think that's probably been the biggest change in my identity. Do work you love.
Right. Yeah. And what would you tell someone that was in your position, let's say like in an academic role and signed up for this huge I mean, a PhD is 7-8 years of schooling. So
no, in Denmark it's 3. You do 3 years.
Oh.
I think in the US it's 5.
Right.
But in the US you also do a lot of courses. Whereas in Denmark you mainly do your PhD. So I think you're evaluated more or less similarly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In the US, a lot of people start the PhD when they finish their bachelor, so they do the master's degree and PhD together. And my master's and then PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of school.
A lot of school. A lot of books. A lot of stuff. To say you're smart, right?
Yes. So what would you, let's say, ask or if one of your children were in that struggle, where they just didn't know exactly what they were passionate about?
Yeah, it's a good question. I joined a thing called Live Your Legend. And I remember it was like, it's about finding your passion and then learning to live off of it. And there were some great tools like questions. One of the questions I remember, what would you be doing if you weren't paid for it? I mean, if you didn't have any money problems, what would you do? I think that's a great question.
Huge. Yeah.
I mean, obviously we need to make some money, but that should be not your first thing, because that is based on fear. You're afraid you can't make the money. It should be, you should be thriving because it's fun, and then the money should come. So yeah, I think it's a lot about trying new things like I did. I was trying a bunch of different things, going to Toastmasters, different clubs, different events. And then you just see, and it should be guided by your emotion. Does this feel right for you? Could you see yourself doing this for 10 years? Because it does take a little bit of time to get good, and people, so you can help other people. So it shouldn't be like a fad with like, oh, it's fun for 2 weeks. It should be a little bit longer. So for me, it's a lot about using the heart. And like I told you earlier, I grew up in a family very academic, or fairly academic, with a lot of scientific approach, which is, the mind. There's a lot from here and up. Yeah. But I think we forget, it just felt great. And I don't care why. It just felt great. Why don't do more of that? Explore that. So yeah, I would say go and try different stuff for a while. If you like knitting, you make a business out of that. Get creative. You can sell your stuff to somebody in Japan. You can sell your stuff to somebody in Chile. You don't have to sell it to the locals' moms or dads in the area. If there are only 500, I'm sure you couldn't make a business out of that probably. But you could, be creative and do new things. I think everybody has the opportunity. If you like diving, why don't you become a diving instructor instead of waiting for those 4 weeks of vacation you have every year? You could do it every day, enjoy it, and right after work, you plunge in if that's your thing. Right? So I think it's about being creative. Most people have things they like to do, and it's about how could you leverage that to a work. And if that one particular thing doesn't work, try another 3, 4, 5 things.
So you're saying, follow your heart, the feeling that feels good. And what about you definitely have an entrepreneur mindset. A lot of people don't. They're like, not for me.
Most people don't.
So, okay. So you would encourage your children to be entrepreneurs as well, for example?
I would encourage people to do what they like. So I think for most people, it's probably the better path, but I'm not saying you should. Let's say you love politics and you want to go into politics. You cannot be an entrepreneur in politics in the system we have here. You have to be elected by other people. So in that particular sense, that wouldn't be a job suited to be an entrepreneur, right? Or there are other sorts of jobs where it doesn't make sense to be. Maybe you just came right out of uni and you said, okay, I want to do my own thing, like you, within media. Maybe it could be a good idea to start your own thing as a side hustle and have a job where you gain some experience, 1-2 years. Don't do 10, 20. Do 1 or 2. You gain a little bit of experience and you get paid, you put a little bit of money aside and you do your thing. I would do that. And then there's a good thing, our good friend, Google, which is if somebody else has done it, why shouldn't you be able to do it?
Exactly.
I believe we are so capable, all of us, to do things. Most of us can learn incredible things if we put our mind to it. So Google it. Other people doing it, so can you too.
Yes.
Most likely.
Exactly. Great advice. So true. We're in such what a time to be alive, I always say.
Well, yeah, we didn't have Google. I mean, I didn't have it when I grew up. I had the local library. I had my mom and dad's shelf. And that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't go into this route earlier, because I think I had it in me. But if you're not meeting it.
Right. Exposure.
Yeah.
To that kind of thing. Yeah. And so when you give speeches, talks, present, do you ever get nervous?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because public speaking is
everything.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, every single time. But I got my tricks, to help. I got my tricks. I'll bring my friends, family along. I'll have them right up above there in a little lamp, I look up at them. Oh, you're there with me, They send me good karma. They don't always know they're with me. Those kind of things helps me. Okay. And I've also had enough, you can say, bad experiences where it didn't go well, and it's not the end of the world.
Right. Yeah.
It is a learnable skill, like I just mentioned. Almost anything can be learned. So if I did bad, it's just a question of going back, reflecting, and saying, okay, what can I improve? And hiring an expert that can help you to the next level. And, you learn it the tough way. One time I did a speaking gig. It didn't go very well. I have twins, and at that time, I think they were 3 or 4 months old. And I had to speak in a morning seminar. And at that morning seminar, I thought, let me sleep as much as possible because, with twins and a little bit older one, you don't get a lot of sleep. So I thought, let me sleep as much as I can and skip my warm up. I always have a warm up routine to get mentally ready. Yeah. You listen to music, thinking your positive thoughts, and, going through all the scenarios that could happen. And I skipped it. And I will never, ever skip that again because I wasn't ready. When you meet that resistance, you got to have something stored of great energy to handle that. Right. But it's one of the best learnings because now I know better how to handle an aggressive audience member. How do you deal with it? So that's what happened. You had an aggressive. Well, there was one, he didn't agree with me, said it very frankly, and it's a little bit tough to get that one after 2 minutes. So, but kind of, brought me a little bit off balance. Right. But then you go home and you study. I mean, for a day, I thought, is this my thing? But then I said, hell yeah, man, I'm going to show that guy. Yeah. I'm going to get back on track. Of course. Your ego stepped in and was like, no, we're going to. Yeah, of course. And then you got to think, every time it gets tough, somebody stops. If you're not the one that stops, you'll be the one that succeeds. Yep. You'll be the one that's paid. So you should be happy if it's difficult because it means there are going to be more quitters. So true. I love that you just said that. Yes, because that's really where like your true grit and your resistance and resilience, actually, because if it was easy, don't you think everyone? Of course, everyone would do it. Everyone would have a podcast like you. It's just like, how do you get in touch with people? How do you set up everything? Yeah, and do all the post-production. Yeah, we gotta love it. That's the thing, like you said. Yeah. And what could you just touch on your routine a little bit? Your grounding routine? Yeah, sure. So I got a routine. I got my YouTube playlist. So I listen to the music. That kind of gets me in state. I do breathing exercises. One of the exercises I love to do is actually, I got it from a Danish guy called Steve Civilian. He's, I think he used to be the one that held his breath the longest in the world ever underwater, like 22 minutes or something. So he's a real expert within breathing. What I do is I take my arms out here, and then you want to be breathing in through your nose. Okay. This is how we're meant to breathe. That is in through our nose and actually also out. But in this exercise, you breathe out through your mouth because you want to prolong the exhale. Because the exhale is what gives you relaxation. That you're like, that feeling? Right. Yeah. That's a slow exhale. You take out your arms, you breathe in through your nose. And this opens up here, and that means you can breathe all the way down to your way down in your abdominals. You got to push your diaphragm, diaphragm, I think you call it in English, right? Diaphragm. Diaphragm down. So you put it out and you hold for a little bit, and then you blow out. And that should be about twice as long. I'll do that 15 times. It gets you really energized. It gets you relaxed, because if you're nervous, you breathe fast and quickly.
Shallow.
You are feeling good. You have a slow breath and a deep breath. And the breath is the fastest way to tell your brain everything is okay. And then I will do visualization also the evening before. And if it's a big event, I'll, do days up to. And the biggest problem people do is they visualize things going well. Like, oh, I'm doing amazing. People clapping, they're cheering. And you don't know if they're going to be cheering. You don't know if they're going to be clapping. Sure, I will visualize things going well, but I will also visualize. And that's what I learned from that bad experience. If there are things that go wrong, so my mind is prepared. Okay, there's a dude over here. He says, this is totally wrong, whatever you're saying. I have visualized that. And that makes my brain go, okay, I've tried to cover every scenario I don't like. So a lot of fear comes from us not knowing what's going to happen. And that's why a lot of people, when you go on stage, you cannot know what will happen. But most people don't have a problem writing a report because it's on paper. It's there. Yeah. It's not a problem. So I try to visualize both the good and the bad. So my brain is aware of every single scenario. Breathing, music, walking is great. Walking, you got to do that a little bit before. You burn off cortisol, the stress hormone cortisol.
When you walk.
Burn that off. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're hunted by a lion, are you going to walk or are you going to run? So if you're running, you're telling your brain, this is dangerous. If you walk, I'm pretty good, Like alpha males, they will take their time. Not in a hurry.
Right. Okay. So right before you'll walk. Yeah.
Just in general, and I try to use people, like come early, smile with them, get some energy, if you can ping off their energy, that's great. You should be able to be in a great state, even if they're not. Right. Yeah. But if you can use some of that and create some spark, some smiles along, you kind of get them with you. That's great. But obviously you should be so good you could handle it, even if they are the most boring and dead audience, right? But most people aren't. So yeah. But that's a little bit of my routine. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's really powerful.
I love it. Yeah. And come early. You got to come early so you don't stress.
So true. All those elements. Again, the virtual thing cuts all of that out.
Yeah. But I set up this thing at least an hour before. Now, not a problem because we could have prolonged it. But you have your time schedule and so on. But if it was alive, it's nice to have set up everything. Yeah.
Be prepared, right? Just over prepare. Sounds like.
Yeah, I think over prepare, really.
Yeah. And how do you get out of? I struggle with this actually because I don't usually script things, but sometimes I do because to hit a time, keep it within a time frame. What are your tips on how to, what you're going to say and then deliver it like it's the first time and it's coming straight from your heart?
Yeah. So what you got to do is you have to, like we talked about a little bit earlier, you want to remember the pictures. So okay, that was the scene where I sat at the table. And then when you're sharing it, you share what comes to your mind, what you saw, what you heard, and you've done all of that work. So that is for your stories. What are the pictures you see? What are the things you heard? So that should come to you, and then share the stories with friends, with family. Every time you have an opportunity, share it, because repetition is obviously key to learning. Now, memory experts don't only use repetition. It's one of their tools, repetition. But I also use a thing called Memory Palace. Which is when I walk around my home, I have certain numbers, like my fridge, which is in the other room, is number 1. So if I start my speech, I start at the fridge. And I can place different things within the fridge. Let's say I want to share a story about how I struggled. I could put in a bleeding heart that's dripping. My mind will remember this because it's weird. And then I can move over to number 2, which is my sink. It has this little bit of shape. And then I can place all sorts of things there. And then I will walk this route. So you can just see my couch here. This is a number 6. This is number 6 in my house, actually, because I had imagined that I could lie like a little number 6 on the couch. So that's his number 6. Right above me, we have my lamp here. That's a number 10 because it's round. And then there's a string. Around you, 10, right? So people don't know this, but when they come to my home, there are lots of numbers all around. And this is a great tool because you're not going to skip a part because you're not going to go from 1 to 3. You're going to go from 1 to 2. So I'll be in my mind, I know my route. Okay, I did my 1. I go to my number 2, and I got it. So there's a little bit of work in knowing your route, putting that down. I would write that down on paper, repeat it, but I've helped myself, put certain things so I can remember those numbers. But that is a little bit of work. And then you do your story, you do your speeches, and you can do your speeches at each of the points. I think Cicero did that back in Rome. He would walk around in his garden and use the memory palace.
Okay.
So something I invented.
Yeah.
And I think he did pretty well. So I'm trying to learn from the best.
Mm-hmm.
And,
going way back.
Yeah.
And how many spots would you recommend? 10? Yeah,
10 is pretty good. Obviously, if it's a longer speech, you probably need more, but I can usually do with 10.
Okay.
And again, if you've shared it many times, it's easier. Or just for the fun of it. When I first learned this technique, I think a couple of years ago, I tried to learn all 45 or how many presidents there are in the U.S. Then I had to use the road outside to get a few more numbers, because you want to stick with 5 in each room, because it's very simple to jump from room to room. So you have 5 in each.
Fascinating.
10 is good, but obviously if you have a full day, you maybe want to do longer. My seminars are typically 3 to 6 hours. So and there's not a problem having your notes along. If you just every now and then go and glance at them, nobody's going to be, I'm just going to go check. We're on schedule. We got 2 hours left. I just want to make sure we're covering the best thing. People are going to be okay with that. You can't do it all the time, but I always bring my notes as a backup. Try not to use them, but it gives me comfort that I have them there. Yeah.
Right. That's a really long seminar.
Yeah, but time to fly if you're having fun. I hope my participants are too.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a good point.
But I try to have bulleted it and have a main thing, and then you have sub things below. Kind of gets it more in order. And if you do miss a thing, it's okay. Yeah. As long as you hit the main thing.
The main points, right? Yeah, bullet points are great. And you had a video the other day on LinkedIn that was about the 3 types of stories, or that the most powerful stories about facilitating change.
Yeah.
Or that a story is.
That was the one on problem. Oh, yeah. Was that about problem solving of the three different
it was
stories? You got to walk me through it.
Let me remind you.
Not so much stuff.
I have so much content everywhere.
Yeah.
It caught my attention because it was kind of defining storytelling as a change.
Yeah.
And
I got it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 3, you spoke about 3 types of change.
Yeah. Those are actually the only 3 stories we can tell.
Okay.
We're talking about change, and we often tend to tell the story that's the external change. Oh, I made this much money. I saved this much amount of time, or I got my Ph.D., I got my diploma, I got a new fancy job or car, which is okay, sure, we'll listen to it. But it's typically not the most interesting thing. It's the inward thing, because that's where we connect. What happened inside of you? Oh, you felt scared too on stage before you went on? Oh, yeah. I shared my dad's story. So many people that have issues, and they relate. I'll have people come up to me afterward and say, oh, I was the only one. Yeah. No. We're many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about your inner thing. And then there's a relationship, relationships to people. And I think I used the example of Star Wars, which is great. I love Star Wars. And you have Luke. Obviously, the external thing is you're going to go out and beat the Empire. And then there's this story with his dad, Darth Vader. You're trying to build that relationship with him. It's a tough one. And then there's the inner thing. Him really believing in the Force. That's what, for me, stands out in that movie. When he starts believing in the Force, everything changes, but he doesn't in the beginning. Yeah.
Right. So you would share that particular story.
Oh, that could be an example of how you could share 3 different stories. Right. But to people who are working in a company, maybe you want to share as a leader. First time I went out and had a workshop, I felt, can I do this? Am I afraid or whatever? You want to share some inner things. If you're a leader and you say, you know what, I'm putting you out in this workshop. I believe in you, but just know that it's super fine if you have a few nerves about this, because I remember when I started 20 years ago, I was so afraid, share that and, those stories, how he maybe overcame a little bit of the fear. So yeah, I think we need to dive into that more than the external part.
Right. Definitely. And so I love those points, because it's true. We want to know that we're not alone. Yeah. Right. With our own struggles and inner world. And a lot of the time we only see the external.
Yeah.
So
yeah, those can be hard to relate to a little bit. Maybe you see somebody extremely successful. Oh, I'm making 8 figures. I can't relate to that. But right. I can relate to first time you pick the phone and call a prospect, potential client, and say, oh, I can relate to that.
Right. Yeah. And then it's possible.
Yeah, of course. You hear how he did it, and maybe he failed, and he tried it a bunch of times, and he learned a few techniques. And like, okay, I'll try to do like he did. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So these are some questions I always ask people.
Okay.
What are you most proud of?
I'm obviously proud of my kids, but I'm actually very proud as well to have made the change, to go from being employed to be my own and, be independent and do the work I love, I think. Being a good dad, I think that's makes me proud. I make mistakes too, but I try to make a big effort to if I did something wrong, say I'm sorry or make up for it, rather than just, hide it. I think I'm pretty proud of that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And looking to the future now, what are you looking forward to the most?
I think it's a lot about scaling my business, because you can work one-to-one with people, but it's more of scaling it to work one-to-many.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's great if somebody walks in the door, I give them training. I like that, because you get to work one-on-one, you get to be a little bit more intimate. But if you ultimately want to scale your business, you need to work one-to-many. So it's not always the hunt to get that one. I'm doing it already, but I would like to do more. So if I am on a webinar and I speak to 50 people, it's going to be the same work if I speak to 500. So learning how to scale it, I think that's the big thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what about you getting on stage? Is there like a physical stage? Is there anything on the horizon?
Yeah, I like to be on stage. Right now, I feel pretty good just being mainly on stage here in Denmark. Because I got 3 kids, and they're still pretty small. So if you're a speaker, you should be available to travel if you really want to go to the bigger stages. So yeah, I like doing the physical thing as well, but actually I enjoy very much virtual webinar as well. So yeah,
that's great.
I'm going to be doing both.
A lot of both, yes, definitely. Yeah. And where can people find you? We know LinkedIn, and then talk a little bit about your services and like what you're offering for people. Yeah,
well, the best place to find me is LinkedIn. I think I put up videos every week, at least every week. And I got my homepage. You can put it in. It's called Talana, which means the speakers. And YouTube, I got, I put some of my longer content I put up on YouTube.
Okay.
I still need to organize a little bit better, but there are 1-2 hour speaking gigs I've just recorded and put up, so you can get a lot of value right there. But the service I really offer is, if you have a message you are burning to get out there, and I know you do, you have something you are dying to share to the world, because we all have. So if you're telling me you don't, I don't really believe you. So if you have a burning desire to share something to the world, I might be able to help you. I think so. Give me a chat, give me a DM, message me. But what I help people with is all the stages in a speaking job. If you are, really nervous, let me help you with the fear. Like I just shared, how do you do your warm-up routine? I can help you with the structure. How do you do a TEDx kind of structure? I've worked with a lot of TEDx people. I work with a lot of people. I have a structure, and I work very much that I have a system. So I give people like a framework, but that doesn't mean you are limited by the framework. It empowers you, because you have a framework you can expand from. So maybe if I have a client who say, do this framework 5-10 times, and then you really get to know it, and you can then take things in and out and change it. So it should never be a limitation. And how I work is I work with you. I want to see who you are. I've met so many people who've gone to people and they've been taught a bunch of techniques. You got to stand like this with your arms. You got to remember to smile. I want to find the greatness within you. What's your passion? How do we make you shine? So it's not so technique based, but it's much more inner based. I want the fire to burn inside instead of outside. Those people where you're just like, like it's not really you. But there are also people who are like, they're really grounded. They're really, you feel that enthusiasm, although they might not be saying as much or be as loud. That's what I want to find. I want to find your uniqueness. Tap into that because everyone has a different style. I like to go extrovert, high energy. Doesn't mean you should. Mm-hmm. So I try to find people's greatness and then help them with that. I give them all the tools as well, the basics, how to do everything, how to structure it, all those sort of things, deliverables. But the most important thing is if you feel confident, things will come out and you will share that to the world and you will help people. So don't try not to shine. I want to help you shine. Mm-hmm. So many people are afraid to shine and it doesn't help anybody, not themselves, not the people they work with.
You nailed it.
Maybe it makes somebody a little bit pissed off because they're seeing they're succeeding, but you shouldn't worry about that person. They are just stuck in their own life and they're trying to bring you down. Don't be that one. Shine. Help people.
You give people permission to shine.
Yeah, that's what you say. I love that phrase.
It's your new tagline. That was amazing. I felt your energy.
Thanks.
So you have that.
I want to ask you a question. A question. What do you think the most important thing is for a speaker? I'm going to make a video about this this week. What do you think the most important thing is for a speaker?
The most important thing for them to...
Yeah, as a speaker, the most important skill. If you could pick one skill in terms of speaking, what would that be for you or anybody else?
It's a great question. The most important skill, a skill set, I'm trying to think. It's more about really removing, like getting out of your own way. And when you said earlier about like that message that is burning inside, that is the most important thing. And imagine it landing with one person and really focusing on that rather than what are people going to think? I mean, all that, all of our insecurities, we're all insecure about something, And so I think that's what makes us human is because we care. So if you could tap into that.
It's a funny world and we got to care so much about the people we share the message to. And on the other hand, we don't have to care at all. Right. It's that balance. Yeah. So interesting. You got to give them love. You got to give them appreciation. On the other hand, you got to be tough. Like, you don't like it. Okay, goodbye.
Right. And realize you're not for everybody.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, listen, of course, they could be right. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a killer thing you're putting on there. That's very, very important. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Going back to the being seen. So nowadays, you essentially are helping people be seen, have their message be seen. In your own life, have you made peace with that? Let's say that maybe not feeling that in your early years, or do you feel like you still struggle with that a little bit?
Oh yeah, there's always a little bit. I think it's like a comfort zone thing or like a muscle. Like if you don't put out content, if you don't speak regularly, we tend to go into our comfort zone and be like, I better just stay on my couch, watch Netflix. Right. Yeah. But if you do it a lot, it's going to be easy. I remember when COVID just hit, my business kind of stopped for a few months because I got to, figure out how this thing working and people, now speaking, that's later. So I didn't speak for a while. And I remember, getting back in the rhythm. It took a little bit of time because I've done it. It was easier. But if you're new, you have to also grow that muscle. Yeah. So, yeah, what was your question? I
I'm like, it was about the being seen.
The fear. Yeah, no, it's still a big thing, and not a big thing. It's a minor thing, let's say, but it's still there. I mean, we are born, I think, to be afraid to some degree, because we live at least we used to live in a small community, and we were dependent on the other people.
Right.
So subconsciously, it's in the back of your head. If people don't like me, you're not going to get food. You're not going to get safety.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a partner. So it's there. But obviously, the intellectual part of me can go, you know what? There are other people I can have fun with. If they don't like my stuff on LinkedIn, fine. So yeah, I think it will always be there because it's just so ingrained in us as human beings.
It is.
We can learn to handle it so it doesn't limit us too much. But I think people's success is to a large degree correlated with how well you can handle that fear. Yeah.
And failure, right?
Yeah, failure, fear. You're okay with failures. I mean, I haven't made enough failures because if I made even more, I would be further ahead. So, more failures we make, the further we are. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's still there. But I'm cool with making videos and going online now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's the message, many messages.
Yeah, it is. But to everybody, go out there and do your thing and share it because you are helping people and you're growing from it. And it's always going to be there to some degree. And for people who say they are not afraid, they probably are. I've often been in the back of the room with people before a speaking gig and, maybe I've trained them or helped them in some way and said, no, I'm not afraid. I'm not really nervous. When I see them before they go on stage, they were afraid. They were nervous. Like, why didn't you, I could have helped you actually more if you told me.
Right.
Just being macho. I'm like, I don't have a problem. Yeah.
So you come across that with men especially?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I don't know if it's a man thing. Maybe it is. Most of the people I come here with, they will tell me they will open up and I will open them up. So it's not that bad of a thing. It's more like if I'm at a big speaking gig and I go and I see a client, you have a chat with people like, no, I'm cool with it, and then you can see there are really not. So one of the services I actually give is if it's in Copenhagen, I go see them and record it because, one thing is when you're training, another thing is when you're on stage, you can behave differently when the nerves are on. So, and then you can actually also feel the room. There's a lot of things going on in the room. And then they might not be aware of that because maybe they are not trained to see it, feel the energy in the room or things that happen or, so that is also one of my services to go see them and then do the whole thing.
Yeah. From start, just behind the scenes.
Yeah. Because, there are many things. It's not just what happens on the stage. What happened with the speaker before, what did he share afterwards? Or, I had people that told me, oh, you're on in 10 minutes. And then they start introducing me a minute after, those sort of things can happen. And how do you react if you're there and with a client, how are they going to react and so on? So there are all sorts of things that makes sense to go there and see them. Yeah,
that would be great.
If it's virtual, I just say record it and try to get a bit of the room as well. Preferably, you could put up two cameras, one on yourself and one on the audience, because you can see how the room works a little bit better if you record them. Ask always for permission for that, obviously.
To film the audience.
Yeah. You should. Yeah.
Oof, that would be hard.
Well, you have the organizer do it. If I do it for a gig, or I will make it a benefit for them. I say, I'll do the recording because then you can have it afterwards. It's not going to cost me a thing to give it to them.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, we would love it. But obviously that means I need to record it. So.
I'm just thinking of like watching the audience as you're speaking.
No, you shouldn't watch it on the video. That's for afterwards. For after,
right. But it would be.
Yeah, you can look at them afterwards. Yeah.
Everyone's on their phone.
Sometimes, but it's the sad fact that often people are, but it's because, maybe they didn't get the right training. So
exactly. They need,
not when you're speaking.
They need you. I'm sold. I mean, public speaking is definitely top biggest fear, and just having this conversation, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone that's listening will as well, because it is a skill, and I think sometimes we believe that it should be natural, and some people they are good at it naturally, or they might have just had more experience.
There's a backstory to everything. One guy I work with, he was an amazing storyteller from day one. But he grew up in a family where they would share stories.
Yeah.
They would sit around and, tell stories to each other. Of course you're going to get good. If you're a child and your parents tell you stories and you have 3 siblings that are also sharing stories, you will learn naturally. And people think he just has a talent for it. No, he just had different circumstances. Right. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment, so I had to learn it the hard way. But I see that as a benefit because I learned it myself. And I found a way to learn it. Whereas if you're just natural, I don't think there are naturals, then it's like, I don't know how I'm good. I just do it. I can help my clients to say, this is the process. I can break it down for you because I've been through it. Yeah.
Right.
So it's not a bad thing to have struggled.
Yes, exactly. And then you have so many stories.
Yeah.
Share.
It's like a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have loved this conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, many stories, and giving some like really tangible tips too. It's really helpful.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It makes a big difference for visibility. And even better, share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode every other Wednesday. If you're interested in working together to elevate your online presence, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on Instagram at whereiswillow. I also hang out on LinkedIn, Willow McDonough. Until then, cheers to carving your own fucking path. I love you.